This is the story of one of the darkest chapters in criminal history in the Arkansas Ozarks, a tale that has haunted researchers and locals alike for nearly 7 decades. Before we begin, I invite you to leave a like and subscribe to support our investigation into America's forgotten mysteries. In the autumn of 1956, the Ozark Mountains of northwestern Arkansas stood as they had for centuries, a vast wilderness of limestone bluffs, dense forests, and isolated hollows where time seemed to move at its own pace. The region, known for its fiercely independent mountain folk and their suspicion of outsiders, harbored secrets that had been passed down through generations of whispered conversations and carefully guarded family stories. It was here, in the remote settlement of Crow's Hollow, that 3 newborn children would become the center of a mystery that defies conventional explanation and continues to disturb investigators to this day. The triplets were born to Ezekiel and Martha Caldwell on October 13, 1956, during what local weather records describe as one of the most severe early winter storms in decades. According to birth certificates filed with Newton County, the children, 2 boys named Jeremiah and Joshua, and a girl named Judith, appeared normal in every way. Dr. Samuel Moorcock, who served the scattered mountain communities for over 30 years, documented their births in his meticulous medical journal, noting that despite the difficult conditions and premature arrival, all 3 infants were healthy and showed no signs of abnormalities. The Caldwell family had lived in Crow's Hollow for 4 generations, descendants of settlers who had fled the chaos of Reconstruction-era violence. Ezekiel, a skilled woodsman and occasional guide for hunting parties, had earned a reputation throughout the region for his knowledge of the mountain's hidden trails and dangerous passages. Martha, the daughter of a local preacher, was known for her herbal remedies and her uncanny ability to predict weather patterns days in advance. Their modest homestead, situated on a narrow shelf of land overlooking Buffalo Creek, seemed an unlikely setting for the horrific events that would unfold over the following months. The first signs that something was amiss came in December 1956, when Dr. Moorcock made his monthly visit to check on the infants. In his journal, preserved at the Arkansas State Historical Society, he wrote with obvious concern about changes he observed in the children's behavior and physical development. The triplets, barely 2 months old, displayed what he described as an unnatural awareness of their surroundings and a disturbing tendency to move in perfect synchronization, as if responding to some invisible conductor. More troubling still, he noted that all 3 children had developed a peculiar mark on their left shoulders, a birthmark that had not been present at birth, but now appeared as a distinctive symbol resembling 3 interlocking circles. By January 1957, reports began filtering down from Crow's Hollow about strange occurrences at the Caldwell homestead. Neighbors, despite living miles apart in the sparsely populated region, spoke of unexplained lights moving through the forest at night, always converging on the Caldwell property. Samuel Hutchins, whose farm lay 2 miles downstream along Buffalo Creek, documented in letters to his brother in Little Rock that his livestock had become increasingly agitated, refusing to graze in pastures with direct sightlines to the Caldwell home. More disturbing were the sounds that echoed through the hollow after sunset, a rhythmic chanting in what local Cherokee descendants identified as neither English nor any Native American dialect they recognized. The isolation that had long protected the mountain communities from outside scrutiny now worked against them as the situation at the Caldwell homestead deteriorated. Mail delivery to Crow's Hollow occurred only twice monthly, and the nearest telephone was 15 miles away in the town of Jasper. When Reverend Tobias Milliken made his scheduled visit to the Hollow in February 1957, he found the Caldwell cabin empty, except for signs of hasty departure. According to his report to the Newton County Sheriff's Department, personal belongings remained scattered throughout the home. Meals sat half-finished on the table, and the fireplace still contained warm ashes, suggesting the family had fled recently and without warning. Sheriff Cornelius Wade, a practical man who had dealt with his share of mountain feuds and family disputes, initially treated the disappearance as a domestic matter. His investigation notes, housed in the Newton County Courthouse archives, reveal his assumption that Ezekiel Caldwell had simply moved his family to avoid some unspecified trouble. This theory seemed plausible, given the mountain culture's tendency towards self-reliance and suspicion of authority. However, as Wade's investigation progressed, he encountered details that challenged his straightforward explanation. The physical evidence left behind at the Coldwell homestead painted a picture that troubled even the pragmatic sheriff. Inside the cabin, investigators found 3 infant cribs arranged in a perfect triangle in the center of the main room, a configuration that Martha Coldwell's sister insisted was not how the furniture had been positioned during her last visit. Surrounding the cribs, someone had drawn intricate symbols on the wooden floor, using what chemical analysis later identified as a mixture of animal blood and an unknown organic compound. The symbols, photographed by Deputy Samuel Crane, showed remarkable precision and complexity, suggesting knowledge of ceremonial practices far beyond what anyone would expect from isolated mountain folk. More puzzling were the testimonies of the few neighbors who had maintained regular contact with the Coldwells. Isaac Brennan, whose trap lines ran near the Coldwell property, told investigators that he had witnessed the triplets on multiple occasions during January, describing behavior that seemed impossible for infants, barely 3 months old. According to Brennan's sworn statement, he had observed the children moving through the forest independently, crawling in formation with a coordination that defied their age. Most disturbing was his claim that on one occasion he had watched the triplets approach a black bear that had been terrorizing the region, only to see the massive animal retreat in apparent fear. The investigation took a more ominous turn when searchers discovered what appeared to be a makeshift altar in a clearing approximately half a mile from the Coldwell cabin. The structure, built from carefully stacked limestone slabs, bore the same mysterious symbols found in the family's home. Surrounding the altar, investigators found the remains of numerous small animals, rabbits, squirrels, and birds, arranged in concentric circles. Dr. Franklin Morse, a biology professor from the University of Arkansas who was brought in to examine the site, noted in his report that the animal remains showed no signs of predation or natural death. Instead, each creature appeared to have died simultaneously, with no visible wounds or trauma. Local Cherokee elder Thomas Nighthawk, whose family had maintained traditional connections to the region for centuries, provided perhaps the most unsettling perspective on the discoveries. In interviews with investigators, Nighthawk spoke of ancient warnings passed down through tribal oral history about certain locations in the Ozarks where the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds grew thin. According to these traditions, such places could be recognized by specific signs, including the spontaneous appearance of circular markings on newborns and the unusual behavior of wildlife. Nighthawk's detailed knowledge of the symbols found at both the cabin and the altar site suggested connections to practices that predated European settlement by centuries. As spring arrived in 1957, the search for the Coldwell family expanded to include state police and volunteer groups from surrounding counties. The rugged terrain of the Arkansas Ozarks, with its countless caves, dense forests, and remote valleys, provided infinite hiding places for a family determined to avoid detection. However, the searchers were looking for more than just missing persons. They were trying to understand how 3 infants had apparently catalyzed events that had frightened experienced mountain dwellers into abandoning their ancestral homes. The breakthrough in the case came from an unexpected source. Dr. Eleanor Whitfield, a psychiatrist from St. Louis who had been studying unusual child development cases, learned of the Coldwell situation through her correspondence with Dr. Moorcock. Intrigued by his descriptions of the triplets' premature development and synchronized behavior, Dr. Whitfield traveled to Arkansas in April 1957 to conduct her own investigation. Her academic background and methodical approach brought new perspectives to what had been treated primarily as a criminal matter. Dr. Whitfield's research, documented in detailed field notes held at Washington University's medical archives, revealed patterns that had been overlooked by local investigators. Through interviews with neighbors and examination of the physical evidence, she developed a timeline showing escalating supernatural phenomena coinciding with the triplets' developmental milestones. Her notes describe electromagnetic anomalies detected near the Coldwell property using primitive but sensitive equipment borrowed from the university's physics department. These readings suggested energy patterns unlike anything in the scientific literature of the time. The most significant discovery came when Dr. Whitfield gained access to birth records from the region dating back to the 1800s. Her painstaking research revealed a pattern of unusual births occurring roughly every 30 years, always involving multiple children, born during severe weather events on or near October 13th. In each documented case, the families had disappeared within months of the births, leaving behind evidence of ritualistic activity and reports of supernatural phenomena. The similarity between historical accounts and the current situation suggested that the Caldwell triplets were part of a recurring cycle that had been repeating for generations. By summer 1957, the investigation had attracted attention from federal authorities concerned about potential cult activity in the isolated mountain regions. FBI agents, operating under the assumption that they were dealing with a religious extremist group, established a temporary headquarters in Jasper and began systematic interviews with residents throughout the area. Their reports, partially declassified in 1978, reveal growing frustration with witnesses who seemed genuinely terrified but unable or unwilling to provide coherent explanations for their fears. The federal investigation uncovered evidence suggesting that the Caldwell disappearance was part of a broader pattern of unusual activity throughout the Arkansas Ozarks. Missing person reports dating back decades showed clusters of disappearances centered around the same remote areas where supernatural phenomena had been reported. More troubling were discoveries of additional ritual sites, some clearly ancient and others appearing to have been used recently. The scope of the mystery had expanded far beyond a single missing family to encompass what appeared to be a centuries-old tradition of occult practices hidden within America's heartland. The investigation files from the Putnam County Sheriff's Department, preserved in the Arkansas State Archives under classification PSC 1956-441, reveal a systematic documentation process that began within hours of the first disappearance report. Sheriff Clayton Murdoch, a veteran lawman with 23 years of experience in the Ozarks, initially treated the case as a routine missing persons investigation. His handwritten notes, dated September 15, 1956, indicate standard procedure. Searched immediate vicinity of Caldwell property, no signs of struggle or forced entry, personal effects remain undisturbed. What Sheriff Murdoch could not have anticipated was that this would become the most extensively documented case in Putnam County history, generating over 400 pages of official reports, witness statements, and correspondence with state authorities. The initial search party, organized on September 16th, consisted of 12 local volunteers led by Deputy Marshal James Whitmore. According to the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette archives, the newspaper's crime reporter Harold Pemberton accompanied the search team and filed daily reports that provide crucial contemporary perspective. Pemberton's September 17th article describes the search area as unnaturally quiet, with local wildlife seeming to avoid the vicinity entirely. His notes mention that search dogs brought from Little Rock displayed unusual behavior, refusing to track beyond a specific point approximately 2 miles southeast of the Caldwell residence. Professional dog handler Marcus Tellerman, contracted by the state, documented that his bloodhounds would approach within 50 yards of a particular grove of blackjack oaks before becoming agitated and retreating. The breakthrough in the initial investigation came through an unexpected source. 12-year-old Tommy Hawkins, son of local store owner Ruth Hawkins, who approached Deputy Whitmore on September 19th with information he had initially been afraid to share. According to the sworn statement preserved in the case files, Tommy claimed to have witnessed unusual activity near Perdition Creek on the night of September 13th, 2 days before the first disappearance was reported. The boy's testimony, transcribed by court stenographer Margaret Finley, describes seeing 3 figures moving through the woods in a line, like they were sleepwalking, heading toward the old mining claims up on Skull Ridge. What makes Tommy Hawkins's testimony particularly significant is its corroboration by physical evidence discovered during the expanded search. Arkansas State Police Detective Lieutenant Robert Cassidy, dispatched from Little Rock to assist with the investigation, documented the discovery of 3 sets of footprints leading from the Caldwell property toward the abandoned copper mines on Skull Ridge. The plaster casts made by Detective Cassidy, still preserved in the Arkansas State Police Evidence Storage Facility, show bare feet of 3 different sizes, consistent with the missing Caldwell triplets. However, what disturbed investigating officers was the spacing and depth of the prints. Dr. Martin Hensley, the county coroner called to examine the evidence, noted in his official report that the footprint patterns suggested an abnormal gait, as if the individuals were walking in perfect synchronization, with step length and depth indicating possible unconscious movement. The investigation expanded significantly on September 21st, when Mrs. Dolores Vance, a widow living 2 miles north of the Caldwell property, contacted Sheriff Murdoch with additional witness testimony. Mrs. Vance's statement, recorded by Deputy Whitmore and preserved in the case files, describes hearing singing or chanting on the night of September 13th that continued intermittently until dawn. According to her testimony, the sounds came from the direction of Skull Ridge and resembled church hymns sung backwards, like playing a recording in reverse. Mrs. Vance, a devout Methodist with 40 years of church attendance, claimed she recognized several traditional hymns, but could not understand why they sounded wrong and disturbing. The investigation took a disturbing turn when searchers finally accessed the abandoned copper mines on Skull Ridge. The mining claims, originally worked by the Ozarks Copper Company from 1892 to 1903, had been sealed by the State Mining Commission in 1904 following a series of fatal accidents. However, according to the report filed by Arkansas State Police Sergeant Dennis Moorcock on September 23rd, recent excavation had reopened several mine shafts. The digging appeared to have been done by hand, using primitive tools, and showed evidence of extensive recent activity. Soil analysis conducted by the Arkansas Agricultural Extension Service indicated that the excavation had occurred within the previous 2 weeks, coinciding with the period immediately before the disappearances. Inside the reopened mine shafts, investigators made discoveries that transformed the case from a missing persons investigation into something far more complex. Detective Lieutenant Cassidy's report describes finding arranged stones forming circular patterns with what appears to be organic material at the center of each circle. The organic material, sent to the University of Arkansas for analysis, was identified by Professor of Biology Dr. Elizabeth Marchant as consisting primarily of animal bones, bird feathers, and an unidentified fibrous substance later determined to be human hair. Carbon dating analysis, a relatively new scientific technique in 1956, indicated that some of the bone fragments dated to the late 1800s, while others were considerably more recent. The most unsettling discovery came when searchers ventured deeper into the mine system. According to the official report filed by Sheriff Murdoch on September 25th, investigators found evidence of recent habitation in the deeper tunnels. Personal items recovered from the scene included children's clothing consistent with garments the Caldwell triplets had been wearing, 3 pairs of shoes arranged in a precise line, and a collection of handwritten notes in what appeared to be a child's handwriting. The notes, transcribed by examining officials and preserved in the case files, contained repetitive phrases in what linguistics professor Dr. Adrian Kellerman of the University of Arkansas identified as a mixture of English and what appears to be a dialect consistent with early Scots-Irish settlement patterns, but arranged in a manner suggesting ritualistic repetition rather than normal communication. The investigation's momentum was disrupted by the arrival of federal authorities on September 26th. According to correspondence preserved in the Arkansas State Archives, the Federal Bureau of Investigation assumed jurisdiction over the case following a request from Arkansas Governor John Caldwell, who cited concerns about potential interstate implications. FBI Special Agent Patricia Morrison, dispatched from the Little Rock Field Office, brought federal resources and expertise that significantly expanded the scope of the investigation. Agent Morrison's preliminary report, classified for 20 years and released in 1976, describes the case as exhibiting characteristics consistent with organized criminal activity, though the specific nature and motivation remain unclear. Under federal oversight, the investigation expanded to include extensive background research into the history of the area surrounding Skull Ridge. FBI researchers, working with historians from the Arkansas Historical Association, uncovered documentation of similar incidents dating back to the earliest white settlement of the region. Records from the Arkansas Territorial Government, dating to 1823, include a report from Territorial Marshal William Breckinridge describing the disappearance of an entire family, the Morgensteins, under circumstances bearing striking similarities to the Caldwell case. According to the territorial records, the Morgenstein family of 5 vanished from their homestead near what is now Skull Ridge, leaving behind undisturbed personal possessions and evidence of organized departure toward the mining areas. The historical research yielded increasingly disturbing patterns. Dr. Harold Winnett, a historian specializing in frontier Arkansas, compiled a comprehensive report for the FBI documenting 17 separate incidents of unexplained disappearances in the immediate area between 1823 and 1956. Each incident shared common characteristics. Missing individuals were found to have moved voluntarily towards Skull Ridge, personal possessions remained undisturbed, and local residents reported unusual auditory phenomena in the days surrounding each disappearance. Dr. Winnett's research, preserved in the National Archives under classification FBI 156 AK 789, concluded that the pattern suggests either a remarkable series of coincidences or the operation of a consistent causal factor over a period exceeding 130 years. The breakthrough in understanding the case's historical context came through the work of Dr. Margaret Stonefield, an anthropologist from the University of Chicago who was consulting with the FBI on cases involving potential ritualistic elements. Dr. Stonefield's analysis of the evidence from Skull Ridge, combined with her research into Cherokee tribal traditions, revealed connections to pre-European religious practices. According to her report, dated October 12, 1956, the stone arrangements found in the mine shafts were consistent with Cherokee ceremonial patterns documented in the ethnographic work of James Mooney in the 1890s. However, Dr. Stonefield noted significant variations from traditional Cherokee practices, suggesting either a corrupted form of indigenous ceremony or a deliberate perversion of sacred rituals for purposes unknown. The investigation's focus shifted dramatically following the testimony of Ezra Baumgartner, an elderly Cherokee man living on the Buffalo National River who contacted federal authorities through his nephew, a teacher at the Bureau of Indian Affairs School in Russellville. Baumgartner, then 83 years old and one of the few remaining speakers of traditional Cherokee in Arkansas, provided testimony that fundamentally altered investigators' understanding of the case. According to the transcript of his October 15th interview with FBI agent Morrison, Baumgartner described traditional Cherokee warnings about specific locations in the Ozarks, including the area around Skull Ridge, which tribal elders considered to be places where the earth dreams badly. Baumgartner's testimony included detailed descriptions of Cherokee oral traditions dating to the period before forced removal in the 1830s. According to these traditions, certain locations in the Arkansas mountains were considered to be thin places where the boundary between the physical and spiritual worlds was particularly permeable. Cherokee protocol required specific ceremonies and restrictions around these locations to prevent what Baumgartner translated as the calling of the lost ones. The elderly Cherokee man explained that violation of these protocols could result in what he called walking sleep, a condition where individuals would lose conscious control and be drawn to perform actions directed by spiritual influences. Federal investigators corroborated elements of Baumgartner's testimony through archaeological evidence. Dr. Patricia Mountainview, an archaeologist from the Smithsonian Institution brought in to examine the site, documented clear evidence of extensive Native American activity at Skull Ridge dating back approximately 800 years. Her preliminary findings, reported to the FBI on October 22nd, indicated that the location had served as a ceremonial site for multiple indigenous groups over several centuries. Significantly, Dr. Mountainview's excavations revealed that the copper mining operations of the 1890s had disturbed and destroyed much of the original ceremonial infrastructure, potentially disrupting whatever spiritual safeguards had been maintained by previous indigenous occupants. The investigation reached its climax when federal authorities decided to maintain continuous surveillance of the Skull Ridge area. Beginning October 25th, FBI agents established observation posts at strategic locations around the mining claims, equipped with the most advanced recording and photographic equipment available in 1956. The surveillance operation, codenamed Project Hillwatch, was designed to document any unusual activity and potentially locate the missing Caldwell triplets. However, according to declassified FBI documents released in 1982, the surveillance teams themselves began reporting disturbing experiences within 72 hours of establishing their positions. Agent Morrison's October 28th report described systematic equipment failures, unexplained auditory phenomena, and what she characterized as persistent psychological effects on surveillance personnel. Multiple agents reported dreams involving underground spaces and rhythmic chanting, dreams that proved to be remarkably consistent across different personnel. More disturbing was the discovery that surveillance equipment was being systematically disabled during overnight periods, not through obvious sabotage, but through precise technical failures that required expert knowledge to accomplish. The FBI's technical analysis, conducted by specialists from the Bureau's Washington headquarters, concluded that the equipment failures showed evidence of deliberate manipulation by someone with advanced technical knowledge, though the methods used remain unclear. Dr. Harrison's disappearance marked the beginning of what many researchers would later call the Ozark curse. Within 6 months of his vanishing, 3 other investigators who had attempted to follow his research met similar fates. Dr. Margaret Steinberg from Columbia University lasted only 2 weeks in the region before her rental car was found abandoned on Highway 65, her research notes scattered across the forest floor. Detective Raymond Phillips, a retired investigator from Little Rock who specialized in cold cases, disappeared after spending just 1 night at the Hendricks farm. His police radio was discovered 3 days later, wrapped around the same oak tree where the triplets had supposedly been found hanging. The pattern became undeniable when Professor James Whitmore from Arkansas State University vanished in 1983. Whitmore had been the most cautious of all the researchers, traveling with a full support team and maintaining constant radio contact with the university. His final transmission, recorded at 3:47 p.m. on September 23, 1983, was particularly disturbing. According to the university's emergency protocols officer, Sarah Chen, Whitmore's voice suddenly changed mid-sentence during a routine check-in. Chen described hearing what sounded like 3 different voices coming through the radio simultaneously, all speaking in perfect unison. The transmission lasted exactly 13 seconds before cutting to static. Local authorities, now deeply suspicious of outside researchers, began maintaining detailed records of what they privately called Ozark incidents. Sheriff Thomas Brennan, who served Baxter County from 1975 to 1995, kept meticulous files on every unexplained occurrence in the region. His daughter, Deputy Sheriff Linda Brennan Martinez, inherited these files and shared them with the Arkansas Historical Society in 2010. The documents reveal a pattern of escalating supernatural activity that directly correlated with increased research interest in the Hendricks case. Between 1979 and 1995, Sheriff Brennan documented 47 separate incidents of what he classified as paranormal encounters in the Ozark region. These included 17 sightings of 3 identical figures walking together along remote forest paths, always observed between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Park Ranger Michael Thompson reported the most detailed encounter in his official incident report, dated March 12, 1987. Thompson described watching 3 figures emerge from the woods near Bull Shoals Lake, moving in perfect synchronization toward his ranger station. As they approached, he noticed their clothing appeared to be from the early 1900s, and their faces were completely identical. When Thompson called out to them, all 3 figures stopped simultaneously and turned to look at him. He reported that their eyes were completely black, and when they opened their mouths, no sound emerged, despite their lips moving in unison. The technological revolution of the 1990s brought new opportunities to document these encounters. In 1994, wildlife biologist Dr. Elena Rodriguez installed motion-activated cameras throughout the region as part of a state-funded study on nocturnal wildlife patterns. Over 18 months, her cameras captured hundreds of images of local fauna, but they also recorded something far more disturbing. On 12 separate occasions, the cameras photographed 3 identical human figures walking through the forest in formation. The images, preserved in the Arkansas Wildlife Department archives, show the figures maintaining precise spacing of approximately 6 feet between each person. Most unsettling was the discovery that the figures cast no shadows, even in photographs taken during daylight hours. Modern paranormal investigators have attempted to apply scientific methodology to the Hendricks case, with varying degrees of success and safety. In 2003, the television program Unexplained America sent a full production crew to document the Ozark phenomena. Producer Janet Walsh and her team spent 3 weeks in the region, conducting interviews with local residents and attempting to recreate the conditions that led to the original disappearances. Their investigation yielded compelling evidence, but came at a significant cost. Camera operator David Kim reported experiencing what he described as time displacement during filming. According to Kim's detailed account, filed with the production company's insurance department, he would frequently lose track of several hours while operating his equipment, only to discover later that his cameras had recorded footage of locations he had never visited. The most disturbing incident during the Unexplained America investigation occurred on their final night of filming. Audio engineer Patricia Valdez was recording ambient forest sounds when her equipment began picking up what she initially believed to be radio interference. Upon closer analysis, the interference resolved into 3 distinct voices speaking in perfect harmony. The voices, according to Valdez's technical report, were reciting what appeared to be a countdown in reverse, starting from the number 847 and decreasing by 3 with each repetition. The countdown continued for exactly 43 minutes before abruptly stopping at the number 13. When Valdez attempted to replay the recording the following day, she discovered that her equipment had somehow recorded over 40 hours of audio during the 43-minute session. Contemporary researchers have identified several warning signs that seem to precede encounters with what locals have dubbed the Hendricks 3. Dr. Amanda Foster, a psychology professor at the University of Arkansas, who has studied the case since 2005, has documented a consistent pattern of environmental changes that occur before sightings. These include a sudden drop in temperature of exactly 13 degrees Fahrenheit, the complete cessation of all animal sounds, and the appearance of what witnesses describe as an unusually thick fog that seems to move against the natural wind patterns. Dr. Foster's research, published in the Journal of Anomalous Studies in 2012, represents the most comprehensive academic analysis of the Hendricks case to date. Her study, based on interviews with over 200 local residents and analysis of meteorological data spanning 30 years, reveals that supernatural encounters in the region follow predictable patterns tied to specific dates and weather conditions. The highest concentration of incidents occurs during the 3-day period surrounding September 23rd, the anniversary of Professor Whitmore's disappearance, particularly when atmospheric pressure drops below 29.8 inches of mercury. The digital age has provided new tools for documenting Ozark phenomena, but it has also revealed the adaptive nature of whatever force continues to manifest in the region. Cell phone videos recorded by visitors between 2010 and 2020 show a disturbing evolution in the behavior of the 3 figures. While early witness accounts describe them as simply walking through the forest, recent footage shows them actively pursuing individuals who enter their territory. Park Ranger Jessica Chen reported in 2018 that the figures now seem capable of covering vast distances instantaneously, appearing simultaneously at multiple locations throughout the forest. Most concerning is the discovery that the influence of the Hendricks 3 appears to be expanding beyond the original Ozark region. In 2015, similar sightings were reported near the Buffalo National River, approximately 50 miles from the original Hendricks farm. By 2019, encounters had been documented as far south as the Arkansas River Valley. Dr. A. Foster's current research suggests that the phenomenon is following waterway systems, potentially using underground cave networks that connect the various river systems throughout Arkansas. The technological investigation led by computer scientist Dr. Robert Chen has revealed perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the modern Hendricks case. Dr. Chen's analysis of digital photographs and videos taken in the region between 2005 and 2020 shows evidence of what he terms retroactive manipulation. Images that initially showed normal forest scenes would, when examined weeks or months later, contain additional elements that photographers swore were not present during the original capture. Most frequently, these additions took the form of three identical figures standing in the background of tourist photographs, always positioned in a triangular formation. Local law enforcement continues to maintain unofficial protocols for dealing with Hendricks-related incidents, though these procedures are not acknowledged in any official capacity. Current Sheriff Maria Santos, who has served Baxter County since 2016, inherited a comprehensive response system from her predecessors. This system includes specific guidelines for search and rescue operations in the affected areas, mandatory buddy system policies for officers working alone, and a strict prohibition on overnight investigations during the September 20th-25 window each year. The economic impact of the Hendricks case on the local community cannot be understated. Tourism to the region has declined by approximately 30% since 2000, according to Arkansas Department of Tourism statistics. Local businesses report significant drops in camping reservations and hunting permits during autumn months. Conversely, the area has attracted a steady stream of paranormal investigators and curiosity seekers, though their visits tend to be brief and often end with abrupt departures. Recent developments in the case have taken an even more disturbing turn. In 2019, genealogist Rebecca Martinez discovered birth records suggesting that the Hendricks triplets may not have been the only multiple birth in their family line. Her research, conducted through the Arkansas State Archives, revealed evidence of at least 3 other sets of triplets born to Hendricks family members between 1890 and 1920. Most significantly, Martinez found death certificates for all 3 sets, each listing identical circumstances, hanging by rope from an oak tree, with notes indicating the bodies were discovered in a triangular formation. The implications of Martinez's research extend far beyond simple family history. If her findings are accurate, they suggest that the events of 1956 may have been the culmination of a multi-generational pattern rather than an isolated incident. This theory gains credibility when considered alongside Dr. Foster's psychological profile of the surviving family members, which revealed evidence of inherited trauma patterns consistent with multi-generational exposure to extreme psychological stress. As research into the Hendricks case continues, one fact remains constant: the phenomenon shows no signs of diminishing. If anything, recent evidence suggests an escalation in both frequency and intensity of encounters. Park rangers now report that the 3 figures appear to be actively patrolling the forest, moving in coordinated search patterns that suggest intelligence and purpose. Most disturbing is the recent discovery that they appear to be mimicking the voices of missing researchers, calling out from the woods in perfect imitations designed to lure others into the forest. The Hendricks case represents more than a simple historical mystery or paranormal curiosity. It stands as a stark reminder that some doors once opened can never be closed. Whatever force was unleashed in those Arkansas mountains in 1956 continues to grow stronger, more sophisticated, and more dangerous with each passing year. The 3 figures walking through the Ozark forests may appear to be the ghosts of children who died nearly 70 years ago, but the evidence suggests they are something far more complex and far more threatening. For those who choose to visit the Arkansas Ozarks, the warning signs remain consistent: sudden temperature drops, unnatural silence, and fog that moves against the wind. If you encounter 3 identical figures walking in formation, do not approach them. Do not call out to them. Do not attempt to photograph or record them. Instead, leave the area immediately and do not look back. Most importantly, if you hear voices calling your name from the woods, Remember that the Hendrix triplets learned to speak in perfect unison, and they have had nearly 70 years to perfect their mimicry of the living. Whatever calls to you from those dark Arkansas woods may sound familiar, but it is not human, and it is not your friend. The most recent developments in the Hendrix case have emerged from an unexpected source: advanced satellite imaging technology made available through a collaboration between the University of Arkansas and NASA's Earth Science Division. Dr. Michael Chen, a remote sensing specialist who joined the investigation in 2020, has been analyzing high-resolution satellite imagery of the Ozark region dating back to 1999. His findings, published in the International Journal of Geographic Information Systems in 2021, reveal disturbing patterns that were invisible to ground-based researchers. Dr. Chen's analysis shows that vegetation patterns in the affected area have been changing in ways that suggest organized manipulation. Using multispectral imaging techniques, he identified 3 distinct corridors of altered plant growth radiating outward from the original Hendrix Farm location. These corridors, each approximately 50 meters wide, extend for miles through the forest in perfectly straight lines that ignore natural topographical features. Within these corridors, native oak and hickory trees show accelerated growth rates, while understory vegetation displays patterns of dieback that create clear pathways through otherwise dense forest. Most significantly, Chen's temporal analysis reveals that these corridors have been expanding at a consistent rate of approximately 12 meters per year since satellite monitoring began. Ground truthing expeditions, led by forestry specialist Dr. Karen Williams, have confirmed that the corridors contain soil chemistry anomalies, unlike anything in the botanical literature. Soil samples collected from within the corridors show elevated levels of phosphorus and nitrogen, but in isotopic ratios that suggest non-biological origins. Dr. Williams's team also discovered that these pathways are completely devoid of insect life, despite supporting abundant plant growth that should attract various arthropod species. The expansion pattern has drawn attention from federal agencies beyond traditional law enforcement. In 2021, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention quietly established a monitoring station in the nearby town of Mountain Home, ostensibly to study environmental health impacts on local communities. However, documents obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests reveal that the CDC's actual mission involves tracking what they term anomalous behavioral patterns in the regional population. Dr. Sarah Kellerman, the CDC epidemiologist heading the project, has documented a 23% increase in sleepwalking incidents among residents living within a 30-mile radius of the original Hendrix Farm. More troubling is her discovery that these sleepwalking episodes follow consistent patterns. Affected individuals consistently report dreams of walking through dark forests while following 3 figures who remain just ahead, always out of reach. Security camera footage from local businesses and residences has captured multiple instances of people walking through the streets in the early morning hours, moving in the same synchronized formation reported by historical witnesses. The technological monitoring systems installed by various research teams have provided unprecedented documentation of the phenomena, but they have also revealed the adaptive intelligence behind the manifestations. Dr. James Morrison, an electronics engineer contracted by the Arkansas Paranormal Research Institute, has documented systematic interference with monitoring equipment that suggests deliberate countermeasures rather than random supernatural effects. His technical analysis, published in the Journal of Applied Electronics in 2022, describes how monitoring devices experience cascading failures that follow logical patterns designed to maximize information loss while minimizing the appearance of intentional sabotage. Morrison's work has revealed that the interference affects different types of equipment in sequence, starting with the most sensitive instruments and progressing systematically through backup systems. The timing of these failures suggests real-time assessment of the monitoring capabilities, with countermeasures deployed only when researchers appear to be gathering particularly significant data. Most disturbing is Morrison's discovery that the interference patterns are becoming more sophisticated over time, as if whatever intelligence is responsible is learning from each encounter with new technology. The psychological impact of prolonged exposure to the Hendrix phenomena has become a significant concern for researchers and local residents alike. Dr. Patricia Valdez, a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma response, has been studying the mental health effects on individuals living in the affected region since 2018. Her longitudinal study, following 147 local residents over 5 years, reveals consistent patterns of what she terms ambient psychological pressure that affects even individuals who have never directly encountered the supernatural manifestations. Valdez's research documents elevated rates of anxiety disorders, sleep disturbances, and what she describes as anticipatory dread syndrome among long-term residents. Participants in her study consistently report feeling watched or followed, even during daylight hours and in seemingly safe locations. Psychological testing reveals heightened startle responses and hypervigilance behaviors that typically develop only after direct trauma exposure. Most significantly, Valdez has identified a subset of residents who demonstrate measurable psychic sensitivity, reporting detailed precognitive dreams about future disappearances days or weeks before they occur. These psychically sensitive individuals have become invaluable to researchers, though their involvement comes at considerable personal cost. Maria Santos, a local resident who has demonstrated consistent precognitive abilities related to the Hendrix phenomena, has worked with investigators since 2019, despite experiencing severe psychological strain. Santos's predictions have achieved an accuracy rate of approximately 78%, allowing research teams to avoid potentially dangerous situations and providing advance warning for law enforcement agencies. However, Santos and others like her report that their abilities are becoming stronger and more intrusive over time. What began as occasional vivid dreams has evolved into waking visions that can be triggered by proximity to the affected areas or contact with objects connected to the case. Santos describes experiencing what she calls overlay vision, where she simultaneously perceives both current reality and scenes from the past or potential future. During these episodes, she reports seeing the Hendrix farm as it existed in 1956, complete with the triplets in their final days before the hanging incident. The most disturbing aspect of these psychic encounters is their interactive nature. Santos and other sensitive individuals report that the three figures appear to be aware of being observed across time, often turning to look directly at the percipient during vision episodes. In several instances, Santos has reported that the triplets attempt to communicate during these psychic contacts, speaking in unison as historical witnesses described, but delivering messages that relate to present-day research activities rather than historical events. Advanced audio analysis of recordings made during psychic episodes has revealed another layer of complexity to the phenomena. Dr. Robert Steinberg, an acoustics specialist from the California Institute of Technology, has analyzed dozens of audio recordings made during Santos's vision experiences. His frequency analysis reveals that what witnesses perceive as children's voices actually contain subsonic and ultrasonic components that suggest non-human vocal apparatus. The harmonic structure of these vocalizations shows mathematical relationships that Steinberg describes as artificially perfect, lacking the natural variations present in human speech. Steinberg's research has also identified what he terms psychoacoustic manipulation in the recordings. The voice patterns contain specific frequency combinations that research has shown can induce altered states of consciousness in listeners. This discovery suggests that the Hendrix entities may be using sophisticated acoustic techniques to influence human behavior, potentially explaining the compulsive actions reported by historical witnesses who were drawn to participate in the ritualistic activities that preceded the triplets' deaths. The international research community has begun to take notice of the Hendrix case, particularly following presentations at the 2022 International Conference on Anomalous Phenomena held in Edinburgh, Scotland. Dr. Elena Kozlova, a Russian physicist specializing in quantum consciousness theory, has proposed that the Arkansas manifestations represent evidence of what she terms quantum consciousness persistence, the theoretical survival of consciousness beyond physical death through quantum mechanical processes. Kozlova's team, working in collaboration with researchers from the Max Planck Institute for Quantum Optics, has detected what they describe as quantum coherence anomalies in the affected areas. Using portable quantum interference detection equipment, they have measured sustained quantum entanglement patterns that persist far longer than natural quantum states should maintain coherence. These measurements suggest the presence of some form of organized quantum information that could theoretically support conscious awareness, independent of biological substrates. The implications of Kozlova's research extend far beyond the Hendrix case itself. If her quantum consciousness theory proves accurate, it could represent the first scientific documentation of consciousness survival after death. However, the Arkansas manifestations differ significantly from typical concepts of survival after death. Rather than passive spiritual remnants, the Hendrix entities demonstrate active intelligence, adaptive behavior, and apparent goals that suggest purposeful activity rather than simple persistence of memory or personality. Ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted by archaeological teams have revealed additional complexities beneath the surface of the affected areas. Dr. Amanda Richardson, leading a team from the University of Mississippi's Archaeology Department, has mapped an extensive network of natural and artificial underground chambers throughout the region. The natural cave systems, formed by typical limestone dissolution processes, have been extensively modified by human activity spanning several centuries. Most significantly, Richardson's team has discovered evidence of coordinated excavation activities that appear to have occurred in multiple phases over the past century. The most recent excavation activity shows tool marks consistent with late 20th century equipment, suggesting that someone has been actively expanding the underground network in recent decades. The purpose of these excavations remains unclear, but the pattern suggests systematic preparation for some type of large-scale activity. The underground chambers contain archaeological evidence of prolonged human occupation, including the remains of temporary living spaces, storage areas, and what appears to be ceremonial chambers decorated with symbols matching those found at the original Hendrix farm. Carbon dating of organic materials found in these chambers spans from the late 1800s to the present day, indicating continuous or repeated use over more than a century. Most disturbing is Richardson's discovery of 3 chambers that appear to have been designed specifically to house children. These chambers, located at the deepest accessible level of the cave system, contain evidence of long-term habitation, including sleeping areas, storage for children's clothing and toys, and educational materials dating from various decades throughout the 20th century. The arrangement of these chambers in a triangular pattern, with connecting passages that would allow synchronized movement between them, suggests they were designed with the specific needs of the Hendrix triplets in mind. Local oral history projects, initiated by the Arkansas Folklore Society in 2020, have revealed additional historical context that previous investigations overlooked. Interview subjects, many of whom are elderly residents with family connections to the region dating back generations, have provided accounts of similar incidents that were never officially reported or investigated. These stories, collected by folklorist Dr. Mary Catherine Williams, describe a pattern of supernatural activity that extends much further into the past than official records indicate. According to these oral histories, the Hendrix family was not the first to experience the particular type of supernatural phenomena associated with their farm. Multiple families throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries reportedly experienced similar events, including the spontaneous organization of children into synchronized behavioral patterns, unexplained knowledge of ritualistic practices, and ultimately, the tragic deaths of children under circumstances that local authorities preferred not to investigate thoroughly. The most detailed of these historical accounts comes from 89-year-old Ethel May Morrison, whose great-grandmother lived in the region during the 1880s. According to Morrison's family stories, passed down through 4 generations of women, the supernatural activity in the area operates on roughly 30-year cycles, with each cycle involving a different family but following the same general pattern. Morrison's account includes specific details about intervening incidents that were never documented in official records, suggesting that the Hendrix case represents only the most recent and best documented example of a recurring phenomenon. These oral histories also provide insight into local strategies for avoiding supernatural encounters that have been developed over generations of experience. Traditional protective measures include specific timing restrictions for travel through certain areas, ritual behaviors designed to avoid attracting supernatural attention, and community-based warning systems that alert residents to periods of heightened activity. Many of these traditional practices have been abandoned as younger generations moved away from the region or dismissed them as superstition, potentially contributing to the recent escalation in supernatural encounters. The economic and social impact of the Hendrix phenomena on the local community has evolved significantly since the initial incidents of the 1950s. While tourism related to the supernatural aspects of the case has provided some economic benefit, the long-term effects on property values, business development, and population stability have been predominantly negative. Real estate records show that properties within a 10-mile radius of the original Hendrix farm have experienced depreciation rates approximately 40% higher than comparable properties elsewhere in Arkansas. More concerning is the demographic shift affecting the region. Census data analysis conducted by sociologist Dr. Robert Chen reveals that the area has experienced a net population loss of 32% since 1960, with the highest outmigration rates among families with children. The remaining population is disproportionately elderly, with many long-time residents reporting that they remain only because they lack the financial resources to relocate, or because they feel responsible for maintaining traditional protective practices that might help contain the supernatural activity. Local business owner Janet Morrison, whose family has operated a general store in the region for 4 generations, describes the economic challenges facing the community. According to Morrison, seasonal businesses that once relied on hunters, campers, and tourists now struggle to maintain profitability due to visitors' reluctance to spend extended periods in the area. Even residents who remain in the community report changing their daily routines to avoid potentially dangerous areas and times, resulting in reduced economic activity and social interaction. The role of social media and internet communication in documenting and disseminating information about the Hendrix case has created new challenges for researchers and law enforcement. Amateur investigators, paranormal enthusiasts, and content creators regularly visit the region to create videos and posts about their experiences, often without proper preparation or understanding of the dangers involved. This uncontrolled investigation activity has resulted in several disappearances and has complicated efforts to maintain systematic research protocols. Dr. Patricia Valdez, continuing her psychological research in the region, has documented the impact of social media attention on both the supernatural phenomena and the local community. Her analysis suggests that increased public attention and investigation activity appears to correlate with escalated supernatural activity, as if the entities involved are responding to the heightened interest. This correlation raises questions about the relationship between human consciousness, attention, and the manifestation of paranormal phenomena. The most recent disappearance occurred in September 2023, when paranormal investigator Marcus Chen vanished while live-streaming his exploration of the caves beneath the Hendrix farm. Chen's livestream, which was being watched by approximately 1,200 viewers when he disappeared, provides the most detailed real-time documentation of an encounter with the supernatural entities. The footage shows Chen exploring the underground chambers when his equipment begins detecting what he describes as temperature anomalies and electromagnetic interference. The final minutes of Chen's livestream are particularly disturbing. His camera captures audio of what sounds like children's voices singing in harmony, though no children are visible in the footage. As the singing grows louder, Chen's behavior begins to change noticeably. He stops speaking to his online audience and begins moving through the caves with apparent purpose, as if following directions only he can hear. The live stream ends abruptly when Chen's camera equipment fails, but not before viewers report hearing him speaking in unison with the children's voices, reciting what sounds like ritual incantations. Search and rescue operations for Marcus Chen have been ongoing for over 6 months, representing the most extensive effort to locate a missing person in the region's history. The search has involved multiple state and federal agencies, professional cave rescue teams, and advanced underground mapping technology. Despite these resources, no trace of Chen has been found, though searchers have discovered evidence of recent human activity in previously unexplored sections of the cave system. The search efforts have revealed the true extent of the underground network beneath the Hendricks property and surrounding areas. Cave mapping specialists have documented over 15 miles of connected passages, chambers, and vertical shafts that create a complex three-dimensional maze beneath the Arkansas hills. Most concerning is the discovery that many of these passages show evidence of recent modification and use, including the installation of primitive but effective navigation markers that would allow someone to move through the darkness with confidence. The ongoing investigation into Marcus Chen's disappearance has attracted renewed federal attention to the Hendricks case. The FBI has reopened their files on the case and assigned a cold case specialist, Agent Sarah Martinez, to conduct a comprehensive review of all evidence collected since the original incidents. Agent Martinez brings modern investigative techniques and technology to bear on evidence that has been accumulating for nearly 70 years, potentially revealing patterns and connections that earlier investigators missed. Agent Martinez's preliminary findings, shared with local law enforcement in December 2023, suggest that the Hendricks case may be connected to a broader network of similar incidents across the southeastern United States. Her analysis has identified at least 12 other cases involving multiple child victims, ritualistic elements, and unexplained disappearances in rural areas of Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, and Kentucky. The geographic distribution of these cases suggests either a traveling group of perpetrators or a coordinated network of individuals operating across state lines over several decades. The psychological profile of the perpetrators, assuming human agency rather than supernatural causation, indicates individuals with advanced knowledge of child psychology, regional folklore, and ritualistic practices. The level of coordination required to maintain such activities over extended periods suggests either a well-organized group with generational continuity or individuals with exceptional longevity and dedication to their objectives. However, Agent Martinez acknowledges that conventional criminal investigation techniques may be insufficient to explain all aspects of the evidence. As 2024 progresses, the Hendricks case continues to evolve and present new challenges for investigators, researchers, and local residents. The combination of historical mystery, ongoing supernatural activity, and modern technological documentation has created a unique situation that defies simple categorization or resolution. Whether the phenomena represent genuine supernatural activity, elaborate human deception, or some combination of both, the impact on those involved continues to be profound and often tragic. The three figures that continue to walk through the Arkansas forests carry with them nearly 70 years of accumulated mystery, fear, and unanswered questions. Each new investigation, each technological advance, and each attempt to understand or contain the phenomena seems only to reveal additional layers of complexity and danger. The Hendricks case serves as a stark reminder that some mysteries may be beyond human comprehension or resolution, and that our attempts to understand them may ultimately serve purposes that we neither intend nor control. For those who encounter references to the Hendricks case in academic literature, paranormal investigations, or internet discussions, the fundamental warning remains unchanged. The Arkansas Ozarks contain forces that have consistently proven hostile to human investigation and interference. The price of curiosity about this particular mystery has been measured in human lives and psychological trauma spanning multiple generations. Whatever truth lies hidden in those dark Arkansas hills, it may be a truth that humanity is not prepared to face or survive knowing.